Hello everyone and happy Halloween. This is Andreas from Nordic Tarot. I'm bringing you a love reading for the month of November, and as the readings are general and trying to cover as many people as possible, there won't be a message for everyone. And I sincerely hope that there is a message for you, but kind of by design it's not possible for there to be one for everyone watching. And if you'd like more information about how to contact me for personal reading or what decks I use, you'll find all of that in the description box below. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy your reading. Hey Cancer, Sun, Moon and Rising. This time your underlying energy is the Four of Wands, and the Four of Wands is like one of the commitment cards. It's a very stable card. All the Fours cards are stable cards. Like you have the Four of Pentacles, which is also a stable card, but in a very different way. The Four of Wands is about commitment and committing, and in work reading it might be a promotion, for example, or it can be about moving house or something like that. But in a love reading it often speaks about a relationship, committing to another person, and it's like a leveling up of a relationship. So, if you're single, you might start dating. If you're dating, you might, move in together. And then if you're living together, maybe you get engaged, for example. Like, it's one step up from where you are right now. But I'm looking at this reading and I'm not really seeing other people. So this can very well, even if you are in a relationship, this can be just within yourself still. Like I said, in a love reading, the Four of Wands might be leveling up of a relationship. But of course, with there not really being other people in this reading, then it can still, like I said, again, even if you are in a relationship, or even if you are dating and you're looking to, even if you are single, and you're looking to start dating, the Four of Wands can be both things. In this reading, I feel like it's more like a commitment to what you're doing, or some kind of journey, or how things are within you. But I'll go through the reading and, maybe we do find something where this Four of Wands is about a relationship to someone else. But the problem circumstance at the heart of your reading, you do have the Five of Pentacles. And the Five of Pentacles is a card of, emotional poverty, or sometimes it can be talked about actually having like practical money troubles as well. But it's like feeling left out in the cold, feeling like there's no one there to help you. And sometimes it's on purpose. Sometimes we do this like, no, this is something I feel like I have to do on my own. That I don't want anyone else's support in achieving what I'm trying to do in this current situation. But sometimes it's just that we feel like we are left out in the cold. Like there is no one there for us. Like there is no support to get from someone else. But what the Five of Pentacles is also saying is that there is help if we look up, if we look for it, if we want help, if we ask for it, then there is help around that we can make use of. That help and that support is there. But this is crossed by the Six of Swords, and the Six of Swords is one of like the movement cards. That there is a low level of grief associated with this card, like something happened and we're trying to move away from that. It's moving from choppy waters to calmer waters, and kind of trying to reach a more harmonious shore, if you will. Like we are trying to move away from this hurtful or bad thing that happened into more of a harmonious state, or like trying to move on. And this can sometimes be a physical journey, just like how the Five of Pentacles can be about practical, tangible things like money. The Six of Swords can also be like short distance travel and like actually traveling somewhere. It can also be like, if you have the Four of Wands and the Six of Swords, I would say that this can indicate moving house, for example. Is that something that's going on? Are you planning on doing that? I don't know, but sometimes when they show up together, that's what they mean, right? But often the Six of Swords is about an emotional journey. It's something we're doing within ourselves. That, for example, we were hurt in the past and we're trying to get over that, and that is what the Six of Swords represent. So, how do the Five of Pentacles and the Six of Swords kind of relate to each other here is that you do feel like you have no support, and is it about this journey then? Like, how do they interact? So, like, currently you're feeling this, like, feeling left out in the cold, or emotional poverty maybe. Is it because the Six of Swords? Because you are moving away from something that Maybe you feel like you're on your own because you're moving away from someone else, or a relationship maybe. Maybe something ended, like that's something it can be. And it looks like it's been really tough. Like the Six of Swords makes sense because in your past you have the Nine of Swords, which is, that's a card of worry. It's insomnia, sleeplessness. It's worrying. It's feeling depressed about something, that something's got us very down, or something we've really worried about. Like that is the Nine of Swords. Like for example, if the Nine of Swords shows up in the future, for example, then I wouldn't read it as, oh, in the future you're going to be really worried, or you're going to be depressed in the future. It's more like you are so worried about the future that all the future is showing is that you're worried about it. But I feel like the Nine of Swords and the Six of Swords are very much connected, because like the Six of Swords is moving away from something painful, and we might be grieving over something and moving away from that, trying to get to a better place. And it makes sense if the Nine of Swords is that thing that you're moving away from. What this has kind of gotten you in the present, like what that kind of past energy has evolved into or changed into, is the present energy of the Ace of Swords. And the Ace of Swords is a victory card. This is victory through the truth. So do you have this currently? Like, you have the Ace of Swords. Have you seen some truth? Are you looking at things like, no, this is how it is, and the truth might be really painful, it might hurt a lot, but it can also be your truth. It's like, no, this is how I see things. This is how I want things to be. I get a sense of like confidence from the Ace of Swords. Like, despite all these things happening here, and I would say the Ace of Swords is related to the Page of Swords, and I'm not going to jump ahead, but I feel like they're related, and I'll explain that once I get to the Page of Swords. But like the Ace of Swords is this new way of thinking, and it's kind of being able to cut through things with the Ace of Swords. And like the Page of Swords is wielding the Ace of Swords. That's what he's doing there. And what this like leads on to in the future, and I thought this was kind of confusing at first, but you have the moon here, and the moon can be about confusion. It can be about not having enough information, about not seeing things clearly. Like, just imagine being outside when the sun is out versus when the moon is out. Like, when the sun is out, you can see every blade of grass, and you can, read license plates on cars easily. Like, things are very clear and obvious, and you can see them for what they are. But when the moon is out, things are very, like, shrouded in darkness, and things look different to what they actually are in reality. And the moon can often also be about intuition, about having those kind of answers within yourself and kind of trusting yourself to know what to do, right? I'm not really seeing like a bunch of intuition cards. I know some other signs got like the moon and the High Priestess, which then brings out the intuition aspect of the moon a lot more. But how this makes sense to me is that in your crowning or the advice, which can be like, this is something you can do to clear things up, you have the Page of Swords. And like I said, the Page of Swords makes use of the Ace of Swords. And the Page of Swords is an information gatherer. He finds out the answers. He's like, what's happening? Sometimes his kind of flip side can sometimes be that someone's spying or trying to find out something without us knowing, right? But I feel like it's much more so the information gathering aspect of, like, you have this Ace of Swords in your present and make great use of it, like the Page of Swords. Find that information. That's how he uses that's how he uses the Ace of Swords, sorry. Now, another aspect of the Page of Swords is that he can represent brutal honesty, like almost to the point of being tactless, of just, this is the truth, this is my truth, and kind of, and sometimes brutal honesty is required, where it's like, no, I'm putting your foot down, like, this is how I see things, this is how what you're doing is affecting me, for example. And maybe that's something someone doesn't want to hear, but that doesn't mean that you don't need to express that you don't need to, make your voice heard. It's like, no, this is how things are affecting me currently. And of course, this can sometimes be that we're doing it to ourselves as well, like being brutally honest with ourselves. Like, well, I've been telling myself I do this because of X, but in reality, when the Page of Swords is here, it's Y. Like, if I'm brutally honest with myself, this is why I'm doing it, or not doing something. So yeah, like the moon is confusion and not having information, but then you do have the Ace of Swords and the Page of Swords here in your like advice card that is about gathering information and speaking the truth. And the truth can be a truth, it can be your truth, it can, it can be a truth that is not necessarily compliant with someone else's truth, and it doesn't have to be because it's yours. This is how you see things. And that's worth just as much as anyone else's truth. Now, in your feelings, on the other hand, and this is going back to the Force again, you have the Four of Pentacles. And yes, the Four of Pentacles is a very stable card, just like the Four of Wands is a stable card. But the Four of Pentacles, the stability is much more of like a defense and a stuck kind of energy. Where the Four of Pentacles asks us, what is of value to you? What is it that's important to you? What do you hold dear? And it was also saying that this, like the person in the Four of Pentacles, and the Four of Pentacles is sometimes called the Miser's card. Because this is someone who's being miserly. This is someone who doesn't want to invest. They don't want to risk what's of value to them. Like they're holding on to their Four of Wands for dear life because it's so important to them and they don't want to lose them. Which is, completely fine and a valid choice to do that. But on the other hand, unless they kind of risk what's important to them, or like they're never going to be able to expand on what they have. They always just have what they have currently. So I do feel like the Four of Wands here in your feelings, it is very defensive, and it's like, no, I don't want to spend these coins or these pentacles. Like I don't want to lose them. I want to have them still. And like I said, that's completely valid if that's what you want to do, but also realize that you won't be able to grow past those Four Pentacles either. And I do feel like this Four Pentacles energy is very heavy, like it's a lot of work to keep this up. And especially when you have the Ace of Swords here, that you might realize this. That's how I feel about it. You might realize that you might not be able to just hold on to what you have. You might have to spend it to keep moving with the Six of Swords, to keep going to a calmer place, a more harmonious place. Now, in your outside influence placement, you have the Nine of Pentacles. And the Nine of Pentacles is a card of confidence, it's abundance, it's being like sure of yourself, but it's also about comfort zones and not wanting to leave this garden that you've created for yourself full of this abundance. Because the Nine of Pentacles can sometimes be called the Gilded Cage. That it's a very nice place to be, it's beautiful, it's abundant, it's, very glitzy and amazing, but it's also a cage. Like, it might be very beautiful, but you're also kind of stuck there. And, like, trust me, I understand comfort zones, and this is where I feel safe, and this is where I want to be. And I feel like the Nine of Pentacles and the Four of Pentacles are very much connected here with that kind of sentiment that this is safe, this is where I want to be, and, going outside that comfort zone can be incredibly scary. But at the same time, maybe this is something that would be very useful to go outside of that comfort zone. And what is that comfort zone about? Like, is it this Five of Pentacles here where you feel like there is no one to ask for help, for example? Now, what you have in your hopes and fears placement is the Ten of Wands. This is an energy of being overburdened, of feeling like you have too many commitments and too many responsibilities, and you don't really know how to deal with this. And having the Ten of Wands in your hopes and fears here, it makes a lot of sense to me. Especially when I look at the oracle cards as well, and I'll get to them in a minute, but there is this thing of feeling like you have so much on your plate, right? And the thing is, with the Ten of Wands, this is someone who's still doing it. They are still putting all the work in, and they are moving forward, and they're putting effort into accomplishing their mission. But that doesn't mean it's not difficult. That doesn't mean it's not a burden, or an overburden in some cases, where it's just really tough, and you feel under a lot of pressure when you have this kind of energy. And it looks like you're worried about this, that you're worried about how much is on your plate and all the responsibility, or how much you have to do and all the work that's involved in doing this. Now, in your outcome, you have the Seven of Swords. The Seven of Swords can be one of those. It's one of those energies that people kind of wince at when they see. Sometimes I feel like oh, I don't want that. I really don't want that energy. But the Seven of Swords, yes, it can sometimes be called the liar, cheater, deceiver card, like all these nasty things, but sometimes it's just about, like, maybe this is something you feel like you have to sneak around with. Like, maybe not that you're lying, but you just don't want people to know what you're doing, maybe. Maybe this is something you feel like you're doing all on your own, and it's something that, like, the sun isn't here, the sun isn't lighting this up. What you have in the future is the moon. And if anything, the moon and the Seven of Swords go well together, so maybe the moon is of service to you in some way as well. Because when the sun is around, the Seven of Swords is difficult. You can't sneak around in the darkness with the Seven of Swords when the sun is out, because you will be spotted immediately. Or I should say, one will be spotted immediately. I'm not saying that you're sneaking around. But the Seven of Swords is also right next to the Page of Swords. Like, the Page of Swords, like I said, he is that information gatherer, and is this about gathering information maybe under the radar? Like, this is something you feel like you want to do on your own, and like, check this out, gonna find some stuff out and see what's going on. I don't know, with the Seven of Swords being there next to the Page of Swords, it almost feels like kind of research, like trying to find something out, ways of doing something, or like to start something with this. I hope that makes sense, goodness. But I'm going to move on to your first Oracle card, and it's from the Oracle of E, and it's number 47, Nasty Knots. And it reads, despite how it looks, you can now slip easily out of your current ensnarement. It only looks like quicksand. In reality, getting free is a piece of angel food cake. Leave the drama behind. Yum. So I kind of feel like this is stuff you're doing, like the drama, it can be the past with the Nine of Swords, right? And you do have the Six of Swords, which is this thing about moving away, and you can do it, and it might seem really difficult because with the Five of Pentacles, it kind of looks like you feel like you're doing it all on your own, or that maybe you think you have to do it on your own. But before I get too much into that, I want to immediately move on to your next Oracle card, which is from Wisdom of the Oracle, and it's number 34, A Leg Up. And the essential meanings are receiving help, delegating authority, and interdependence. I feel like that card speaks to the Five of Pentacles immediately, that there is help there. You don't have to do it alone. There are people that you can look to for help or support, that there is some kind of, maybe a support network around that. You don't have to do it all on your own with the Ten of Wands. Like with the Ten of Wands, that one of the advice for that card sometimes is that if possible, maybe you can delegate some of the responsibility to someone else, or someone can help you with what you're trying to achieve with the Ten of Wands. The overburden doesn't have to be there. And that's kind of what A Leg Up is saying, that you ask for help. If there is help available, ask for it and, receive it and make use of it. And then the Five of Pentacles and the Ten of Wands energy, like those things are kind of negated as well. But then is that what the Four of Pentacles is about? Is that about not wanting to do it on your own is so important to you? But then again, in the present energy, you do have the Ace of Swords, like the truth. And it's victory through the truth. It's being honest and open and, viewing things in like a new way of thinking, seeing things differently and for what they are and all these things. And I think those are some important things to look at with this reading. Because remember, the moon and the Seven of Swords in the future and the outcome, these are potential. They have the potential of being there. I feel like maybe if you are using the Ace of Swords and the Page of Swords kind of energy, I feel like the moon might not be there in this way. And, the same with the Seven of Swords. Like, it doesn't need to be done in the dark, The sun can come out and things can look a lot different. But it is about this defensive energy in your feelings with the Four Pentacles as well. Like, why are you holding on to these things so fervently? Like, is this something you might want to ease up on? And yes, it is a risk and it is scary, but it looks like you kind of want help and that there is help there if you look for it or if you ask for it. So there we are. That was your reading for November. The energies were pretty tough in some regards this time around. I did my best with all of your readings, but sometimes it just doesn't come together without a struggle, Before I go, I'd like to wish you a happy Halloween once again, and remind you that if you want to contact me about a personal reading or check out the decks I use, the information is in the description box below. I'd also like to thank all of you for watching and supporting me. I do read all your comments and reply to as many as I'm able to. Once again, thank you and happy Halloween.